The trembling stranger, the forest, was silent, too silent. Even the wind seemed afraid to move between the tall alien trees. A human soldier named Daniel walked carefully, his boots pressing against the glowing moss that lit the ground faintly. He had been separated from his unit after the battle. Smoke still hung in the distant sky, and his radio was dead. He was alone, or at least he thought so. Daniel stopped when he heard it, a faint rustle, small, almost too quiet for the human ear. He gripped his knife and turned slowly. His eyes scanned the bushes, his heart steady but alert. Something was out there, something watching him. "Who's there?" Daniel said, his voice low but firm. The sound came again, closer this time. Daniel moved a step forward, and then he saw her. At first, he thought it was a trick of the light. A tiny figure, no taller than his hand, crouched in the glowing grass. She had pale skin that shimmered faintly, her hair like silver threads, her large eyes, glowing like two tiny moons, stared up at him in pure terror. She trembled. Her small hands pressed tightly against her chest. Her body shook as if his words were thunder crashing above her head. She was so fragile, so small. Daniel felt like one wrong move could break her. It's okay," Daniel whispered, lowering his knife. But the girl only shook harder. Her lips moved, but no sound came out. She stared at his mouth as if every word was fire. Daniel crouched slowly, trying to make himself look smaller. The girl flinched, ready to flee, but her legs wobbled. She looked too weak to run. She pressed herself back against the roots of a tree, as if the wood could swallow her and hide her away. His soldier's instincts told him one thing. This girl was starving. The hollow cheeks, the trembling hands, the faint glow of bones under her skin. She had not eaten for days, maybe weeks. Daniel reached into his pack and pulled out a piece of bread. It was dry, not much, but food all the same. He placed it gently on the ground between them. Not moving closer, the tiny alien girl's eyes flicked to it. Hunger burned there, but fear held her back. She shook her head and pressed tighter into the tree. "You need it more than I do," Daniel said softly. His voice carried through the still forest, calm, steady, gentle. The girl's lips trembled. A whisper finally escaped, so faint Daniel almost thought he imagined it. "Thunder. Voice?" She muttered, her words broken. Daniel blinked. He realized then, to her, his deep human voice must have sounded like a storm, loud and frightening. No wonder she trembled. He softened his tone even more. "I won't hurt you, little one," he said, almost like speaking to a child. Minutes passed. The girl stared at the bread, her tiny body trembling with both fear and hunger. Finally, she took a step forward, then another. Her small hands reached out. Shaking so badly Daniel thought she might collapse, she grabbed the bread, bit into it, and her eyes widened as if the taste was life itself. Daniel stayed perfectly still, watching. His heart tightened. What kind of people would abandon such a fragile creature to starve alone in the forest? The girl ate in small, desperate bites, crumbs falling onto her trembling hands. She glanced up at him often, ready to run if he moved. But when the bread was gone, she did not flee. Instead, she curled up near the roots again, watching him with wide glowing eyes. Daniel sighed and leaned back against a tree. The forest hummed softly. But something about the silence felt wrong. He scanned the shadows. His soldier instincts never rested, and he was right not to. Behind the trees, something large moved. A shape slithered in the dark, eyes glinting faintly, watching both him and the girl. Daniel's grip tightened on his knife again. He did not know what creature lurked there, but the way the girl's eyes suddenly widened told him one thing. It was danger. She whimpered softly, her whole body shaking again. She looked at him, her lips moving silently, as if begging him for help. Daniel's chest hardened. He did not know her. He did not even understand her words fully, but in that moment he knew one thing clearly: he could not leave her. The forest grew colder, the night pressing in. The stranger in his path was no longer just a trembling girl. She was now his responsibility. His breath was steady, his grip firm. He whispered without thinking, words more for her than himself. "You're safe now," he said. But even as the words left his lips, the shadows behind the trees stirred again, and the true test of that promise was about to begin. The hunger in her eyes, the fire crackled weakly in the forest clearing. Daniel sat close, sharpening a small stick into a spear. His eyes scanned the dark trees, always listening, always waiting. He could not shake the feeling that something dangerous still lingered nearby. The shadows seemed to move even when the night was calm. The tiny alien girl sat a few feet away, curled against the roots of the old tree. Her glowing eyes never left him. She was still afraid, but there was something else in her gaze now. Something stronger than fear. Hunger. Daniel noticed how her little hands pressed against her thin stomach. He had seen soldiers look at food the same way after long days without rations. But the difference was clear. This girl looked like she had been starving for weeks. Her arms were too thin, her cheeks hollow. He reached again into his pack, pulling out a small piece of dried meat. He placed it on the ground between them, just like he had done with the bread earlier. The girl's eyes widened, her lips trembled as she whispered something in her own language. Daniel could not understand the words, but he understood the look. She wanted it, desperately. She shook her head as if afraid. Her body leaned forward, then back, caught between survival and fear. Finally, she crawled closer, her movements slow. Careful, her eyes never left him when she reached the food. Her hands shook as she grabbed it. She bit into the meat, and her small body almost sighed with relief. The glow in her eyes flickered brighter. For the first time, Daniel saw something new in them. Not fear, not pain, but hope. Daniel smiled faintly. "Eat, little one, you need it more than me," he said. His voice was gentle now, soft enough not to scare her. The girl kept glancing at him while she ate, as if making sure he would not take it back. Her glowing eyes caught the firelight. They were beautiful, but also filled with something that hurt Daniel to see. Loneliness. When she finished, she licked her fingers carefully. Then she whispered again, this time clearer, "Thunder." "Voice," she said, pointing at him. Daniel chuckled softly, understanding to her. His voice was thunder, too deep, too strong. He tapped his chest gently. "Daniel," he said, introducing himself. The girl flinched at the sound, then repeated in a soft whisper, "Da-ni." L. Her small voice cracked, but she managed it. Daniel nodded slowly. "That's me," he said. He pointed to her, asking silently for her name. The girl froze, her lips pressed together. For a long moment, she did not answer. Finally, she whispered a sound so soft it was almost lost to the fire's crackle.
"Leary."
Daniel repeated carefully. "Leary." Her eyes widened when he said it. And for the first time, a faint smile touched her lips. But the moment of calm did not last. A branch cracked in the distance. Daniel's hand went instantly to his knife. His soldier instinct screamed again. The girl, Leary, curled into herself, her glow dimming as fear returned. She whispered something fast in her language. Her voice shaking, she pointed toward the darkness. Daniel stood slowly, spear in hand. His eyes searched the trees. The night seemed to breathe around them. Something was out there, something big. The shadows moved, but nothing stepped forward. Only silence, too heavy, too unnatural. Daniel stepped back toward the fire, keeping himself between the girl and the forest. His heart was steady, his eyes sharp, but when nothing came, he slowly sat down again. Leary's trembling did not stop, though. Her eyes stayed fixed on the darkness. Wide and afraid, she whispered again, her words broken. "Hunter." Still here? Daniel's chest tightened. So she had been running, hiding, starving. All because something hunted her that explained the scars on her tiny legs, the way she shook at every sound. He looked at her again, so small, so fragile, curled. Like a frightened bird, she should not have survived this long. Yet here she was, the firelight flickered. Daniel pulled off his jacket. He held it out slowly, carefully. Leary stared at it in confusion. He placed it near her roots and nodded. For a long moment she did not move. Then, shivering, she crawled closer. Her tiny hands touched the fabric. She pulled it around herself, sinking into its warmth. A faint sigh escaped her lips. Daniel watched her curl up inside the jacket. Her small, glowing eyes peeked out at him. Still uncertain, but slowly, very slowly, they began to close, before sleep took her. She whispered one more word, soft but clear. "Safe." Daniel exhaled. His grip loosened on the knife. The forest was still dangerous, the hunter still out there. But in that small moment, he knew something had changed. This girl, this trembling stranger with hunger in her eyes, now trusted him, even if only a little, and that trust was worth more than anything else. As she drifted into sleep, Daniel kept watch, his eyes on the trees, his mind steady. He had promised nothing. But in his heart, he already knew he would not let anything harm her. The fire burned low. The night stretched long, and somewhere in the distance, the hunter's eyes glowed faintly, waiting, watching. A home in his pocket, the night dragged on. Daniel did not sleep. His eyes stayed fixed on the dark tree line, listening to every sound. The crackle of the fire was the only comfort in that heavy silence. Behind him, the tiny alien girl, Lyria, slept. Curled inside his jacket, her small breaths were soft, almost like the rustle of leaves. At dawn, pale light broke through the canopy. Daniel stretched his tired shoulders and stood. Lyria stirred weakly, blinking her glowing eyes. She peeked out from the folds of the jacket. Her hair was tangled, her face pale. But there was something calmer in her eyes now. She no longer trembled the way she had the night before. "Morning." "Little one," Daniel said softly. His deep voice made her flinch, for only a moment this time. She hugged the jacket tighter. The warmth seemed to comfort her more than his words. He crouched down and offered her a small piece of fruit he had found. Her glowing eyes followed it, and after hesitation, she reached out with both tiny hands. She ate slowly, carefully, as if afraid it would disappear. Daniel smiled faintly. "You'll need strength if we keep moving," he muttered. He knew the forest was no place to linger. The hunter she had spoken of was still out there. Waiting, when they finally began walking, Daniel kept his pace slow. His soldier's stride was long, but he shortened it for her sake. Yet even then, her tiny legs stumbled. She tried hard to keep up, but her steps were clumsy. Her body was too weak. After a while, she collapsed to her knees, breathing hard. She looked up at him, her glowing eyes filled with shame. She whispered something broken, slow. "Too small," Daniel sighed. He looked at her trembling body, so fragile. His chest tightened. He could not ask her to walk this way. Not when danger stalked him. He crouched down, his eyes meeting hers. "Come here," he said gently. He tapped his jacket pocket, inviting her. Lyria blinked, her tiny head tilting. She looked confused. She pointed at herself as if to say, "Me." Inside. Daniel chuckled softly. "Yes, you," he said. His voice was calm, steady. He tapped the pocket again. For a long moment, she hesitated, her little hands clutching the fabric of the jacket she wore. But then, slowly, she crawled forward. Her movements were timid, uncertain. She slipped into the wide pocket of his jacket. her small frame fitting easily inside. The moment she settled there, something changed. She curled up against the warmth of his chest, her tiny hands gripping the fabric inside. Daniel felt her body trembling, but after a few breaths, the shivers eased. Her glow softened, her head rested against him. Daniel walked forward, carrying her in the pocket. Her weight was almost nothing, yet he felt her presence strongly. He could hear her small breaths, feel her faint warmth. The forest no longer seemed as silent for the first time since the battle. Daniel did not feel completely alone as the day stretched on. They crossed streams and rocky ground. Leary peeked her head out sometimes, her glowing eyes watching the strange world from the safety of his pocket. Birds with shimmering wings passed above. Creatures scuttled through the moss every time something startled her. She sank back inside quickly. Her tiny fingers clung to his jacket until the fear passed. When they stopped to rest, Daniel sat near. A fallen log, Leary climbed carefully from the pocket and sat on his knee. Her body was still weak, but her eyes held a little more light. She looked at him curiously, her lips moving as if testing words. Da. Ni. El, she whispered, saying his name again. Daniel nodded. That's right, he replied gently. He pointed at her. Leary. She blinked, then smiled faintly. It was small. But it was the first real smile he had seen from her. But peace did not last long. A low growl echoed in the distance. Deep and dangerous. Daniel stiffened, his hand moving to his knife. Leary froze, her eyes wide with terror. She curled back into the pocket without a word, hiding against him. The growl faded, but the danger was real. Daniel knew the predator was still hunting. He could feel its presence like a shadow clinging to the forest. He stood and whispered down into the pocket, "Don't worry, I've got you." His words rumbled through his chest, and he felt her small body tremble at the sound. Yet she did not flee from it this time. Instead, she pressed closer, as if his voice, even though thunder to her ears, was now a shield. They kept moving until the sun began to set. Daniel built another small fire, and Leary crawled out to sit close. Her glowing eyes reflected the flames. She pointed at the bread he carried, then at him, then at herself. Her meaning was clear. Daniel tore the piece in two and handed half to her. She smiled again, brighter this time. Her tiny teeth bit into the bread, and she whispered softly, "Safe." Pocket. Daniel's chest tightened at her words. He looked down at her, so small, so fragile. Curled near the fire, and he knew she was right. The pocket had become her home, her shield, her safety, that night. As the forest once again grew silent, Daniel stayed awake. His knife ready, his ears sharp, and in his pocket, Leary slept soundly. For the first time without trembling. But in the distance, eyes still watched, waiting for the right moment to strike. The hunter had not given up. It was only a matter of time before it returned. The predator's return. The forest was dark again. The small fire Daniel built gave only a faint circle of light. Beyond it, the shadows seemed alive. Daniel sat with his knife in hand, his eyes sharp. His ears caught every crack of twig, every whisper of the wind inside his pocket. Leary slept curled against his chest. Her breaths were soft, calm. She trusted him now. But Daniel knew danger had not passed. The growl they had heard the day before was no trick of the mind. Something was out there, and it was hunting. The silence broke with a sound. A branch snapped, loud and heavy. Daniel's grip tightened on the knife. He stood slowly, scanning the tree line. His soldier's instinct whispered the truth. The predator had returned. The air grew colder. A low growl rolled through the night, deep and guttural. Leary stirred. Inside the pocket, her body trembled as if she recognized the voice of the beast. She whispered one word, broken and afraid, "Hunter." Daniel whispered back, steady and calm, "Stay still." His deep voice rumbled through his chest. Leary clung tighter, her tiny hands gripping the fabric inside. The shadows moved, and then he saw it. Eyes glowing like burning coals, low to thee. Ground, but wide apart, a massive shape crept from the trees, covered in dark fur. Its jaws lined with jagged teeth that glistened in the firelight. The predator was larger than any wolf he had seen, its claws digging into the mossy earth. Leary whimpered softly, curling deeper into the pocket. Daniel could feel her fear pressing against his chest. The beast stepped closer, its eyes locked on him, its breath was heavy. Steaming in the cold night air, Daniel crouched, keeping his knife ready. He knew the blade was too small to face such a monster, but he would not back down. If you want her, he muttered, you'll have to go through me. The predator snarled, its voice shaking the ground. Then it lunged. Daniel rolled aside, the beast's claws tearing through the fire. Sparks burst into the air. Leary screamed inside his pocket, her tiny voice full of terror. Daniel gritted his teeth and slashed at the beast's leg as it passed. The knife cut shallow, but enough to make it howl. The predator turned, its glowing eyes furious. It circled him, slow. Careful now. Daniel stood tall, his body between the fire and his pocket. He could not let it near her. He grabbed the sharpened spear he had carved earlier. The predator lunged again. Daniel thrust the spear forward. The wood cracked under the beast's weight, but pierced its shoulder. Oh! The creature howled in rage, thrashing wildly. The spear snapped. Throwing Daniel to the ground, the beast loomed over him, its jaws opening wide. And then something unexpected happened. From the pocket, Leary crawled out, trembling but determined. Her glowing eyes burned bright in the night. She raised her tiny hands, whispering something in her own tongue. Her voice was soft but sharp, like a song carried by the wind. The predator paused. Its glowing eyes flickered, confused. Daniel watched in shock as the beast stumbled back, as if her words cut deeper than his knife. Leary's small body shook violently. The effort was too much for her. She collapsed. Daniel caught her in his hand, pulling her close to his chest. He whispered urgently, "Stay with me, little one." The predator snarled again. Recovering from its moment of confusion, it lowered itself, ready for another strike. Daniel stood tall, knife in one hand, Leary cradled safely in the other. His jaw tightened, his body screamed with exhaustion. But his eyes were steady. The beast lunged again. Daniel swung with all his strength. The knife slashed across its face, blood spraying into the night. The predator roared, retreating into the shadows. Its glowing eyes glared from the dark, promising it would return. Then the sound of heavy footsteps faded into the forest. Daniel stood there, breathing hard. His hands shook, his knife dripped. With the beast's blood in his other hand, Leary trembled weakly, her glow dim. Her tiny lips moved, whispering one word, "Safe." Daniel looked down at her, his chest heavy. She was too small, too fragile. But she had still tried to protect him. Her voice, whatever power it carried, had shaken the beast for a moment. He realized then that she was not just a helpless stranger. She was something more, something precious. He sat back near the fire, pulling her gently against his chest. His voice softened. "You're safe with me, Leary," he said. Her glowing eyes fluttered closed. Her tiny body curled back into his pocket. She sighed weakly and whispered one last word before sleep claimed her. Together, Daniel kept watch through the long night. His knife ready, his heart steady. He knew the predator would return again. But now he was more certain than ever. He would not let it take her. In the silence, only the crackle of fire remained, and above, the stars watched as a human soldier guarded a fragile girl no bigger than his hand. Secrets of the mini-girl, the forest was quiet again. But Daniel knew silence did not mean safety. The predator had been driven off, but its glowing eyes still haunted the edges of his memory. He kept his knife close, his senses sharp. Inside his jacket pocket, Leary slept weakly. Her glow had dimmed after the strange song she had sung the night before. Daniel kept glancing down at her, wondering what power her voice had carried. He had fought many battles, seen many strange weapons, but never had he seen words shake. Beast to its core. By morning, Leary stirred. She blinked up at him with tired, glowing eyes. Her body was fragile, but she was alive. Daniel smiled faintly. "You're tough." "Little one," he whispered. His deep voice rumbled, but this time she did not flinch. Instead, she reached out one tiny hand and touched his chest. She whispered softly, "Daniel." "Safe." He nodded, but his soldier's instincts kept asking questions. Who was she really? Why did the predator hunt her? Why did her voice hold power? He needed answers as they walked that day. Daniel noticed Leary was quiet. Her small head rested against the edge of his pocket. Her glowing eyes watched the forest, but her thoughts seemed far away. Finally, she whispered, "Story." "Tell." Daniel frowned slightly. "You want to tell me something?" he asked. She nodded weakly. Her little hands gripped his jacket. He slowed his steps and listened. Her words came in broken pieces, mixed with her own language, but Daniel understood enough. She spoke of her people, the Illyrians, a race once. Proud and strong, they had wings of light, voices that could bend the will of beasts. They ruled the skies of their world long ago. But war came. She whispered of fire, of enemies who wanted their power. The Illyrians fought, but each generation grew smaller, weaker. Fewer were born with wings. Many could not even sing the old songs of strength. Leary lowered her head. Her tiny voice cracked as she said, "Me. Too small. No wings. No power." Daniel's chest tightened. He realized then why she had been abandoned. To her people, she was worthless, fragile, a child with no use. They had cast her out to die. But Daniel remembered the night before. He had seen her voice push back a monster bigger than both of them. She was not powerless. She was not worthless. "You're wrong," Daniel said firmly, his voice deep and steady. "You have more strength than you know." Leary looked up at him, her glowing eyes wide. As if she could not believe anyone would say that, she whispered, "You believe?" Daniel nodded. "I saw it. You saved me." Her lips trembled, and for the first time, tears welled in her eyes. Tiny drops of glowing liquid slid down her cheeks. She wiped them quickly, ashamed. Daniel shook his head. "Don't hide it," he said gently. "Tears don't make you weak. They make you human. Or whatever you are." Leary let out a soft laugh, broken but real. The sound was like a bell in the quiet forest. For a moment, the weight of her past seemed lighter. But their peace was short. That afternoon, the forest stirred again, not with the predator this time, but with voices. Daniel froze. His soldier's ears caught the sound of movement. More than one. He crouched low. Leary ducked deeper into his pocket, trembling. She whispered fast in her own language. Daniel only caught one word. Hunters' figures appeared between the trees. Tall aliens clad in dark armor. Their weapons gleamed as they spread out, searching. One of them raised a device that pulsed faint light across the forest floor. Daniel pulled back into the shadows, his hand covering Leary protectively. He whispered low, "Stay quiet." Her glowing eyes stared up at him, filled with fear. The alien spoke in harsh tones. Daniel could not understand all of it, but one phrase repeated. "Relic child." Leary clutched at his shirt. Shaking her head, she whispered desperately, "No. No go." Daniel understood. They were hunting her. They wanted the child they had cast away, not because they valued her, but because they feared her. Perhaps her hidden gift was more dangerous than even she knew. The soldiers drew closer. Daniel's hand tightened on his knife. His training told him to avoid a fight. He was one man against many. But his heart told him another truth. He would never hand her over as the soldiers passed near. Daniel slipped silently deeper into the forest, carrying Leary against his chest. Each step was careful. Slow, his breath steady, her small body clung to him, hiding her glow. When the soldiers moved farther away, Daniel stopped to rest. He looked down into his pocket. "Why are they after you, little one?" he asked softly. Leary's lips trembled. She whispered, "Voice." Too strong. Daniel's eyes narrowed. So her song was not just a defense. It was power, a weapon her people had lost. That was why the predator had hunted her, why the soldiers wanted her. She was not weak. She was something rare, something feared. Daniel reached into the pocket and lifted her gently into his hand. He looked at her, small and fragile, yet carrying a gift great enough to shake the forest. His voice was calm, steady. "Listen to me, Leary. You are not worthless. You are not alone anymore. Whatever secret you carry, it's safe with me." Her glowing eyes filled with tears again. But this time, they were not only of sadness. She whispered one word, full of new strength. Together, Daniel nodded, tightening his grip on the knife with his other hand. The forest was no longer silent. Danger was closing from every side. But the secret of the mini-girl had changed everything. She was no longer just a trembling stranger. She was hope. And he would fight the whole world to protect her. The chase through the stars, the forest, was no longer safe. Daniel knew it with every step he took. The armored aliens had been searching. Their voices still echoed in his ears. Relic child. They had called Leary. Their words burned into his mind. They wanted her for what she carried inside. Night fell again, and Daniel pushed them onward. His boots pressed hard into the moss as he moved quickly. He carried Leary close in his pocket, her tiny hands gripping his shirt tightly. She whispered broken words, warning him of patrols, of hunters, of danger. At last, the trees broke open, and Daniel saw something he had not expected. A ruined outpost, metal towers leaning, lights flickering weakly. It looked abandoned. But Daniel's soldier instincts told him it might be their only chance. If there was a ship, they could escape. He crouched low and moved inside. The corridors were broken, vines crawling across the metal walls, but the faint hum of power still ran through the structure. Leary peeked out from his pocket, her glowing eyes wide with both fear and curiosity. Daniel whispered, "Stay close." His voice rumbled softly. She nodded. Though her small body still trembled at the center of the outpost, Daniel found it, a small transport vessel. Dusty, scratched, but intact. His heart beat faster. This could work, he muttered. He had flown before, not well, but enough. Leary climbed onto his hand, her glowing eyes studying the ship. She whispered softly, "Fly. Safe." Daniel gave a faint smile. "We'll find out," he said. They boarded the vessel. Daniel moved quickly, flipping switches, praying power still flowed. The engines coughed, lights flickered. Then the hum grew steady. The ship was alive, but the moment the lights turned on, a siren blared in the distance. Daniel cursed under his breath. The hunters had noticed. They were coming. "Hold on, Leary," he said firmly. He lifted her back into his pocket, her tiny body pressed close against his chest. She whispered, "Together," and clung tightly. The doors of the outpost burst open. Shadows moved. Red lights flashed against the walls. The armored aliens poured in, weapons raised. Daniel's hands flew across the controls. The engines roared louder. The ship lifted shakily from the platform. Blasts of energy fire lit the air as the soldiers shot at them. Sparks rained across the cockpit windows. Come on, Daniel muttered. His hands gripped the controls tight. The ship tilted, engines screaming. Then, with a violent jolt, it shot upward. Breaking through the canopy of the forest, the night sky spread open, filled with stars. The ship shook under fire, but it climbed higher. Daniel's jaw tightened. He glanced down. Leary's glowing eyes looked up at him from the pocket. She whispered softly, "Sky." Free, but their freedom did not last long. From the orbit above, dark shapes emerged. Alien ships. Sleek and armed. Engines flared as they descended toward them. The hunters had been waiting. Daniel's heart pounded. His fingers tightened on the controls. He was a soldier, not a pilot, but survival gave him no choice. The small transport twisted as the enemy ships opened fire. Bolts of plasma streaked past them, explosions lighting the black sky. "Hold on, little one," he shouted. His voice thundered through his chest. Leary clung tighter, her glow flickering with fear. The ship weaved left and right, Daniel's hands steady even as the vessel groaned under the strain. He pulled hard on the controls, diving through. Clouds, plasma blasts followed, close enough to sear the hull. The enemy ships chased, relentless. Their coms crackled faintly in the distance. Daniel did not understand the language, but he caught the word again. Relic. They wanted Leary. They would not stop until they had her. Daniel's eyes narrowed, his jaw tightened. Lear. He muttered low, "Over my dead body." Leary peeked from the pocket. Her glowing eyes filled with tears. She whispered something desperate. "Run. Daniel. Save you." He shook his head firmly. "No, little one." His voice was calm, but full of fire. "I don't leave my own behind." Her tiny body trembled, but she whispered one word back. Together, the ship spun through the black sky. Daniel pushed it to its limits. The engines screamed. Smoke rising from the panels. Ahead, a belt of broken asteroids glimmered in the starlight. Dangerous, but it was the only chance. Daniel pulled the ship toward it. Enemy fire rained down, shaking the vessel. But they plunged into the asteroid field. Rocks spun around them, smashing against each other. Plasma blasts exploded against stone. The hunters followed, but the field broke their formation. Their sleek ships moved fast, but they could not match Daniel's desperate weaving. His eyes were sharp, his hands steady. His soldier's instinct guided him through chaos. The ship scraped against stone. Alarms screamed, but they pushed deeper. The enemy ships crashed against asteroids, sparks of fire flashing in the void. One by one, the hunters fell behind. Finally, silence returned. Only the hum of the engine and Daniel's heavy breath filled the cockpit. He leaned back, exhausted. His hand shook slightly, but his eyes stayed steady. He looked down. Leary peeked from the pocket. Her glowing eyes wide, she whispered, "Safe." For now, Daniel nodded. For now, he agreed. He stared out at the stars, endless and cold. But they'll keep coming. Leary touched his chest with her tiny hand. Her voice was soft but firm. Together, Daniel smiled faintly. His soldier's heart had carried him through many battles. But now he fought for something different, something small, fragile. Yet, more precious than anything else, the chase was not over. The war for her safety had only begun, but under the stars, in the silence of the void, Daniel made a vow. He would protect her, no matter how many ships came, no matter how far they had to run. Pocket-sized hope, the stars stretched endless outside the small ship. Daniel sat at the controls, his eyes scanning the void. The transport rattled from the damage. Panels sparked faintly. The asteroid belt had saved them for now, but he knew the hunters would return. In his pocket, Leary stirred weakly, her glowing eyes peeked out. She looked tired, her small body fragile. But there was strength in her gaze. She whispered softly, "Safe." Together, Daniel smiled faintly. His voice was low and steady. "Yes, together," he said. His chest tightened as he looked down at her. She was no longer just a stranger, no longer just a trembling child. She was family now, but peace was. Short, the ship's radar beeped sharply. Daniel's eyes narrowed. Enemy signals were closing in. Faster this time, stronger. The hunters were relentless. They would never stop until they had her. Leary sensed it too. Her tiny hands gripped his shirt. She whispered in a shaking voice, "They come." For me, Daniel shook his head firmly. "No, they'll have to go through me first." His voice was thunder, but now she did not tremble. She pressed closer instead. His words were not fear anymore. They were shield. The enemy fleet appeared, dark ships spreading across the stars. Their weapons glowed red, preparing to fire. Daniel tightened his grip on the controls. He knew he could not outrun them forever. The ship was too damaged. Leary looked up at him. Her glowing eyes filled with tears. "Daniel, leave me," she whispered. "They want me, not you." Daniel's jaw clenched. His deep voice rumbled. "No, I don't leave my own behind, ever." Her lips trembled. She pressed a hand to his chest. "But I'm small, weak." He shook his head. "No, you are more than you know. I saw it. You are stronger than any of them, stronger than me even." She stared at him, stunned. No one had ever said such words to her. Her people had thrown her away. The hunters called her relic, useless. But this human soldier looked at her as if she mattered. The enemy ships drew closer. Alarms blared. Daniel's hands moved fast over the controls. He whispered without looking down, "If you have any more of that song, little one, now is the time." Leary froze. Her glowing eyes widened. She shook her head, too strong. "Hurt you?" Daniel's voice was steady. "Then I'll endure it if it keeps us alive. Sing." Her tiny body shook, but she climbed out of the pocket. She stood on his shoulder. Small against the wide cockpit window, her silver hair glowed. Faintly, her eyes fixed on the fleet outside. She spread her little arms and whispered words in her old tongue. Her voice trembled at first, then grew steady. The sound was soft, but it carried weight. It filled the cabin. It shook Daniel's chest. The song rose higher. The notes pierced the silence of space. The enemy ships slowed. Their weapons flickered. Pilots clutched their heads as the sound echoed through their minds. The fleet wavered, confusion spreading. Daniel stared in awe. His hands gripped the controls tight, guiding the ship forward. As the enemy stumbled, Leary's song was no longer just a whisper of fear. It was power, true and radiant. But her body trembled with every note. Her glow flickered. Daniel could see it was tearing her apart. "Enough, Leary," he shouted. His voice thundered. She looked at him, shaking. Her eyes filled with pain, but also determination. She whispered one word between the song. Together, and kept singing. The enemy ships broke formation, colliding into each other. Their systems overloaded. Lights across their hulls died. One by one, they spun into silence, drifting powerless into the void. When the last note left her lips, Leary collapsed. Daniel caught her in his hand, cradling her close. Her glow dimmed to almost nothing. Her breathing shallow, his chest ached. "Stay with me, little one," he whispered. His voice shook for the first time. "You're safe. You hear me? Safe." Her tiny lips moved, weak but clear. "Safe." "With you?" Daniel held her close. He leaned back in the pilot's chair, watching the broken enemy fleet drifting in the starlight. His heart steadied. She had done what no weapon could. Her people had thrown her away, yet she had saved them. Both, he placed her gently back in his pocket, tucking her against his chest. Her small body curled. Her glow flickered once more, soft and warm. She sighed and whispered one last word before sleep took her. Hope. Daniel looked out at the stars, his hand resting over the pocket that held her. His voice was low but firm. Yes, little one, you are hope. The stars stretched endless before them. The road ahead was still dangerous. The hunters would return, but now Daniel was certain of one thing. She was no longer just a trembling stranger. She was family, she was future. She was pocket-sized hope, and he would carry her through the stars until his last breath.